Hi, Shell Point. I'm Christy Skinner, Senior Director of Healthcare Services here at Shell Point, joined today by Janine Hammond, Director of Healthy Living Coordination. Thank you so much for joining me, Janine. And we're really looking forward to talking to you today, Shell Point, because a few months ago, I cannot believe it's been about 7 months ago, Janine, we made a significant change to your department, a significant change in services to our residents, which hopefully a lot of you are seeing those changes and feeling those changes when we changed the department from case management to healthy living coordination. And with that came doubling your staff, renaming the department, adding on a ton of initiatives. But I feel like with changes, we can never communicate enough to you, Shell Point. And with changes come some bumps in the road because people still like to talk about the department as case management, even though we talk about healthy living coordination. It's a mouthful, so I understand that. Sometimes we even call our department the old name just because of ease of use. And we made so many new initiatives and changes that it's sometimes hard to remember everything that we're doing. We try to remind people every time we see them what all we've done. We send out letters. We do Shell Point communication. We did an article in Shell Point Life. But I don't think that when we've overhauled a department like we did with your department and added on so much additional support, you can communicate initiatives enough. So I really appreciate you joining me. And one of the things that you and I talked about is it's probably a good time to give a refresher and talk about some of the challenges that you're going through and communicating with residents and letting them know in some of those critical situations and emergent situations what all your team does to support them and what resources we have here on campus. So we'll go right into it if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Why don't you go ahead and highlight one of the pretty important roles that the Healthy Living Coordination team does for us, Janine?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thanks for having me today.
You bet.
So when the residents here at Shell Point have a trip to the hospital, the emergency room, or even a stay in the skilled nursing facility, the Healthy Living coordinators follow up with the residents when they return back home. We want to make sure that that transition home is as smooth and successful as possible. It might include following up with them on a new medication that they received from the hospital, something they weren't taking before, or perhaps there was just a medication they were taking that they adjusted the dose. So we want to make sure that they're getting those medications from the pharmacy. If they have home care services that have been put into place, we want to make sure that those are in place and operational and working as they should. We want to make sure that if the residents have been away from their home for a period of time, the food in their refrigerator may have gone bad. Perhaps they need someone to do some grocery shopping or some laundry. So we want to follow up with residents to make sure that they have the services in place to make sure that that discharge home is successful.
What we have heard time and time again, but I think we hear it a little bit less than we used to once people adapt to the idea that what your service is trying to provide and what your relationship is trying to develop is one of trust and trying to help people remain autonomous and independent for as long as possible. We certainly respect what the residents want. We understand that everybody has different wishes and desires from the continuity of care here at Shell Point, and everybody's ready for what that next step looks like them at different stages in the continuity. But for a long time, the resistance was, okay, if you reach out to me, you're ready to move me on through the continuity, right?
Right, absolutely.
Do you hear that a little bit less now that the relationship is starting to change with what we tried to develop from case management to healthy living coordination, a relationship of proactive position instead of one of reactive position?
Absolutely. I'm seeing some slow changes.
Good.
We do still face some barriers, some folks that will still identify us as, yes, you're the person that helps to move us through the continuum of care. You're going to talk to me about assisted living or skilled nursing care. But I think the more we see the residents, the more that they see us and we earn that trust, that they are noticing the changes in the department.
So what do you want the residents and what do they need to know about the valuable service that you provide when it comes to situations that are emergent?
Absolutely. So two important things to keep in mind when it comes to especially our ability to follow up on those hospital visits and making sure that things go as smooth as possible. Nobody wants to go to the hospital, but if and when that occurs, to make sure that it's as smooth as possible. Resident ICE forms and the assistance cords in the apartments, the assistants call in their apartment. So the resident ICE form is the ICE stands for in case of emergency. So what is on this paper is a brief medical history, medications that the residents might be taking, their preferred hospital, their preferred hospital list, their emergency contacts. So there's a lot of information on that form. The Healthy Living coordinators have these forms. They're happy to sit with the residents and help complete those. We will be bringing them out new ones whenever there's been some kind of an incident. And again, those medications might have changed. Something may have changed. We want to make sure that this is as up to date as possible. All of our independent living residents should have one of these on top of their refrigerator. We have plastic sleeves that open here and you can slide that in. It has adhesive on the back so you can stick it onto the top of the refrigerator.
Excellent.
Because we have heard of people saying that they will slide off or fly off, so we don't want that to happen. And then you just put that paper in there and you have an up-to-date list on your refrigerator. The other piece that this being on top of the refrigerator, the emergency medical services or the on-call nurse, when they respond, will know that this is there to look for that. And that can go to the hospital with you so that it has information for the hospitals to have a baseline to start caring for you. Another piece, the assistants call in the apartments. We definitely want residents to call 911. If you know you're having a medical emergency and you need to call 911, by all means, go ahead and do that. But then if you are able to, afterwards, pull the assistance cord in the apartment. That will initiate the on-call nurse, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We have an on-call nurse to respond to those. That on-call nurse will be able to bring out medical history that can, again, go with you to the hospital. And then the nurse also generates a report so that there's documentation that can go to your Healthy Living coordinator, to go to your primary care doctor here at Shell Point, to make sure that we're aware of that incident and that situation.
Excellent. You said a couple key things in there. So Hospitalist was one of them.
Yes.
We made a lot of changes to the Hospitalist program here. We added on choice for residents, which was a lot of resident requests. So we have additional information on that. If you're unsure what a hospitalist is or what our hospitalist program is here, you can get that information at the medical center. And you said our primary care physicians here at Shell Point. So what does a resident do if they don't have a primary care physician here at Shell Point, and what do they do?
Absolutely. That's a great question. We do offer great primary care services here at Shell Point, but we do have some folks that come to Shell Point. They've already been established with a physician in the vicinity, and so they choose to keep that person as their primary care. We understand that, but one of the things that the Healthy Living coordinators do routinely when they're meeting with residents is ask some of those questions. If someone has a primary care doctor outside of Shell Point, we're going to encourage them to at least have a get acquainted visit at our medical center so that they can have baseline information on that resident in the medical center in the case of an emergency. If you pull that cord and the nurse comes out, we want to make sure we know at least a little history about you. What's your previous surgical history? Do you have any drug allergies? A lot of that's going to be very important if you land up going to the hospital. It may also be very important for that nurse or the on-call doctor that the nurse might contact for assistance in triaging the situation to help determine what the best course of action is for you. And if it's something that maybe is going to keep you from having to go to the hospital and the doctor or the on-call nurse might say, let's follow up with you in the medical center, that's going to be a great bit of history that will help us provide the best care for you.
Excellent. And I think we've got wonderful primary care physicians here. We've got a wonderful team, and I can understand why somebody would want to carry over with their existing physician in the community. Sometimes there's that preference.
Yes.
But certainly establish for in case of emergency with one of our physicians or practitioners makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons.
Absolutely.
So as I alluded to in the beginning, no changeover with the department and no reorchestration of a department. It goes without challenges. So We have talked a lot about this together, and we thought it was great to ask for help from the Shell Point residents on how we can allow your department to be more successful in establishing relationships of trust with you. So tell us what a couple of those challenges are and how we can ask our residents to be more helpful in getting over those obstacles.
Absolutely. So one of the challenges that we face is first of all, we've made this commitment and this statement to residents that we want to provide this level of service for you. Again, part of that proactive planning, earning your trust, getting to know you, doing things to help maintain you in independent living. So sometimes residents might be off campus when they head to the hospital. As you can imagine, if you're on campus and emergency medical services come in to pick you up to take you to the hospital, they might not necessarily be stopping at the security gate to let us know where they're going and for whom.
Right.
So we may not know that you've gone out to the hospital. We may, if it's been on campus or if it's been off-site, perhaps you're seeing a doctor off-site and they send you from their office. So that is one of the challenges. We do have some internal systems in place to help us be aware of those things. Security will let us know if and when they know. The village nurse, the on-call nurse will let us know. But we also have residents sometimes that will call us and let us know that they've gone to the hospital. That is very helpful because we can, again, put the internal processes in place to make sure that we're following them at the hospital, that the nurse liaison that we have for the hospital will stay on top of what's happening with them to make sure that the coordination of care between the hospital and Shell Point is just where it needs to be. So sometimes neighbors will call and they'll say, I don't know if you know that Mrs. Smith went out to the hospital over the weekend, and sometimes we know, and we're very thankful that they've cared enough about their friend and their neighbor to let us know that, but sometimes we might not know, and so that can be very helpful as well.
So communication is the key.
Communication is definitely the key.
All right. Well, we ask you residents to just let us know. It's we understand privacy, and we're very respectful to that, and understand from us that it's only to be able to better serve you, care for you, and fulfill your vision of what you are asking for from a healthy lifestyle from Shell Point, and to get you back to that level of autonomy as soon as possible. So thank you, Janine. I think this has been very informative. And if you don't have an ICE form that's up to date, you can certainly reach out to the Healthy Living Coordination team. If you are having trouble locating that, then ask your Healthy Living Coordinator that's designated to your court. And also, we are working for a way of getting an indication for anybody who doesn't know how to locate your ICE form to have a magnet on the front of the refrigerator pretty soon as well.
Yes, that's coming.
So that's coming too. So if it'll be on top of your refrigerator, and then there'll be a magnet on the front of the refrigerator that'll give an indication to where that ICE form is located. So we're constantly listening to your suggestions, taking in your feedback. That's what we're here for, is to better serve and to better care for you. So Janine, if anybody has any questions, I know that they know how to reach you, but just in case, could you provide your email just one more time for the Shell Point community?
Sure. For
any questions they could forward to you?
Absolutely. Feel free to reach out to me. My email address is my full name, Janine Hammond @shellpoint.org. That's JANINEHAMMOND.
And we are blessed to have Janine here. She's been serving the community for 15 years, going strong, and we look forward to another 15 years plus with her. So thank you, Shell Point, for joining us. We hope that this information was helpful and informative. And until next time, stay healthy.